All right, I will call the Grants Pass School District number 7 to order. Welcome to our meeting. Our first item will be to take the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So if we can just remind the audience that's out there via Zoom, unless you're called on to speak, could you please mute your microphones? And just a reminder for those in the audience, if you wish to speak to any of the agenda items, please place that in the chat, and that is being monitored, and you'll be called on. Todd, you'll let us know if somebody is requesting a blue card.
Thank you. All right. So our first item of business is communications and presentations. Superintendent Kolb, do we have any written communications?
We do not have any written communications.
And as was just announced, the individuals may chat with us over Zoom, and we can answer your questions if there are any. We'll move on to our third item on the consent agenda, which the first is to approve our August 25th board agenda, and also to approve our August 11th, 2024 draft minutes. We have a motion to approve.
So moved. Member Durbin.
Thank you.
Second, Member DeLaGrange.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? We have a roll call vote. Please.
Member Durbin? Yes. Member DeLaGrange?
Yes.
Member Coleman?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Member Wilkins? Yes. And just drew a blank.
Round out.
Member Brownell, I'm so sorry. Yes. And Member Richardson. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That would be Member Debbie.
Ryan Thompson forgot my name in front of the entire graduation ceremony.
Oh. Just a small step compared to that one.
It was noted in his evaluation.
He has to do graduation for 10 more consecutive years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so on to our fourth item, reports, staff reports.
We have no staff reports at this time. The only report there that following the superintendent's reports, and put this on the agenda without forgetting the fact that we could record our welcome back and share it with you all. You all had the invitation to join. We had over 370 staff members logged into Zoom. It was just the Kirk show up front, but we held some traditions by playing the fight song at the very beginning and standing, and I could hear the cheering down the hallway after the fight song was over. It was pretty fun. So traditional introduced each of you with your photo and bio with some inaccuracies on a couple of them. And then we had a video arranged to introduce all of our new staff members. We're on video. We had that, as well as introducing our new administrators to the district. And then launching into our strategic plan, followed up by a super powerful, incredible video that we were able to work with Seth Fenham from Novum Visuals, former Grants Pass High grad. If you haven't seen that video, I really want to encourage you to do it. It's going to go out on our social here soon. One of the teachers somehow got a hold of it, and it's already had 20 shares this morning and how many hundreds, thousands of likes. And a very powerful video about bringing staff back and what we were able to accomplish last spring and what we're looking forward to this spring. So it was well received by staff.
Great, thank you. Next item, 4.3, board reports and special concerns. We have an item to discuss the COVID liability issue protection. So Casey, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted to have a chance as a board to make sure we were just kind of heading into the school year, eyes wide open, understanding the risks that we are undertaking as one of the few districts in the state that are meeting the K through 3 metrics right now. The concern originally came up, 'cause I remember Sherry mentioning it a few board meetings ago, that we were hopeful that the special session was going to tackle the liability issue for us, and that didn't happen. I participated in one of the OSBA webinars that they hosted last week, and even though the topic wasn't necessarily liability, it was the one about what can you do as a board member to help support your schools going back this fall. Almost 100% of the questions were all board members concerned about liability protection, and basically the answer, which was a non-answer, was the ability to kick the can down the road, because they are hopeful that another special session will be called, but the majority of the districts in the state get the benefit of waiting because they don't meet that K through 3 metric, so they don't have the option of going back in person at all here in a couple of weeks. So I kept trying to ask my question, okay, but what about, us minority that are facing this, pretty weighty decision? And I just wanted to make sure, I started an email with Kirk and Scott just to kind of make sure my understanding was on point, but I want to make sure that if there's any discussion as a board we need to have, so we're all knowing what we're choosing to take on, because you're balancing what's best for the kids versus the potential for a lawsuit down the road where we will not have insurance coverage should somebody get sick and then decide to file a lawsuit. And I think, we've done an amazing job of getting prepared, and I have full faith that our staff will be following everything they can to the letter, whether it's the blueprint or the guidance or everything else. It's just with as much guidance as there is out there, there's so much room for an unknowing error, or if there's contradictory guidance out there. I just wanted to make sure as a board we were all aware and had our eyes wide open going into making that decision to go ahead and have in-person school for K through 3, because we do meet the metrics so far, but we will not understandably have, we assume, liability protection, because as we were hopeful that maybe another special session would be called early September, which would be kind of cutting it down to the wire, but I don't know how likely that's going to be. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to have a discussion as a board to talk through that, so we all kind of understood what financial risk we're agreeing to take on for the district by going ahead with the plan as is. And I don't want to be caught with, well, you guys should have talked about this or known about this in hindsight. I want us to go on the record of something that we've talked about, and we made the decision with all of the information and facts in front of us, and we were steadfast in that decision. So anyway, that's why I wanted to bring it up and have the opportunity to discuss it as a board.
Right. When does K through 3 students go back into the buildings? What day?
Let me calendar real quick. One of my directors wants to chime in. They need to have September 14th will begin small groups. Groups are going to be anywhere between 4 to 7 kids per class per day, K through 3. So September 14th.
And are we going to be having other students in other buildings regarding the previous discussion with students that are disadvantaged, or
we will be having limited in-person instruction in other buildings under unique circumstances, whether it's a homeless student who needs connectivity, or it's we need to meet special ed students' unique services in person. For the EL supports, GED testing, so there are an array of different limited in-person that we're planning to.
okay. And then one last thing is, do we have any opportunity to have families like sign some kind of waiver? No, that's
No, we can't waive the students' rights. That's been asked to be answered.
Thank you.
So, is there any additional
additional information you need to make that decision?
I don't know if it's necessarily a decision, but I found myself asking, maybe because I was questioning myself and understanding what exactly we were agreeing to kind of risk exposure wise heading into the fall. Because I remember, when Sherry had mentioned it previously, I kind of put a pin in it, like, well, it sounds like that's going to get figured out before we're in person anyway. And then when we circled back to the webinar I was a part of, and it became very clear that that wasn't the case, I didn't know if there were other board members that were aware or not aware that this was, it's affecting a very small minority of districts that get to go back K-3 in person this fall. Everybody else, when you try to ask the questions, they assume you're part of the majority and answer it as if there's going to be a special session that will address your concerns before you have to be back in person. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware what we were kind of agreeing to from, there's a fiscal responsibility portion of being on this board, and so that's something that I want to make sure that if we unfortunately find ourselves in that situation, I don't want people to be like, oh, I didn't realize that was what we were agreeing to or what the exposure was back when we decided to be in person.
So are you okay with the agreeing to that exposure?
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but she got to come down somewhere.
I'm close enough to the line to want to have a discussion about it, but I think ultimately I do defer to what our director and administration say, the benefit and the importance of having the kids back. Because obviously they've weighed this decision, and it's maybe just getting up to speed on their perspective as to why ultimately they've come out as a team on the go back in person. It's not a requirement. Is it a requirement to go back in person if you meet the K-3 metric?
No, in the guidance it says it is expected. It doesn't say you're required. It does leave it up to local decision to make that determination. So kind of putting it into context, it's no different than the liability that you're exposed to as a business owner or a health organization may be exposed to for its employees. And so it's cross-sector. It's not just public education right now. My recommendation is we do move forward with our plan. And then if the board decides not, that's the board purview and prerogative. And so I would say, we have had positive cases of COVID where staff or students may have been exposed to others under activities and functions we've been doing. We've executed our protocols when those things happen perfectly in conjunction with the health department. I feel very confident about that. The very slow start is intentional, so we are really good at our protocols and procedures. And so, just with staff coming back on Monday, we're refining already and making sure everybody's accountable for doing what they said to do. Brian, you helped us out today. For your comments yesterday, the message got through loud and clear with our staff, and things looked much better. So it's holding each other accountable in this process.
What did you just reference?
So down here, the expectation is just like we are. If you're stationed in one area, 6 feet apart, but if you're going to get up and transition to another part of the building, put your mask up. And so that had gotten kind of loose, and so we just reiterated with staff, and today was not loose.
So I'm assuming you're a little bit, but I think we're part of the legal assistance trust, or whatever they call it, which we have exercised that option in the past. Should we be the point district that a mistake is made and some attorney decides to put some liability on us, we will likely have significant assistance from other districts, probably through that avenue, because should they prevail against us, have had that situation.
Yeah, a number of years ago with the special ed case, I went to the federal courts and we prevailed at the federal court level, but the legal trust picked up about 80% of the legal fees in that.
So it wouldn't just be our insurance that would be necessarily saying we're not going to cover you for the pandemic stuff. There would be other legal systems.
As far as legal fees being covered, but not necessarily if we're found at fault to cover our bill.
Correct.
I mean, I'll let other people finish and say their things. They might answer what's going on in my head.
And there is still a possibility. I just know what I read in the paper. But there is still a possibility that the governor could call another special session before September.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the legislature right now and the governor to call that session to address this specifically in early mid-December. That's the time for me to get.
I've heard it's not going to happen until after the election, the general election. So that's kind of okay for all the other districts that are tentatively not considering it until November to go back. So that's where we're kind of caught in this unique, we get to go first position.
Reach out to Alex at the governor's office.
I did not have a chance to. But I mean, Sherry, have you heard anything else from, because I know you're in contact with every other agency trying to coordinate every other guidance and liability and all that. Have you heard any news on more pressure for a special session, or is it feeling like it's us until November or December?
I agree with you, Casey. The last I heard is that they were not even going to consider a special session to talk about this topic until at least November.
And so worst case scenario, just understanding the liability piece of it, that I did not know the information you shared, Gary, so that does help me feel a little bit better that we're kind of for the musketeers of school districts in Oregon, one for all and all for one a little bit. But the issue, as I understand it, is because insurance won't cover it, there's no cap to what somebody could potentially sue us for, and that would be financially, yeah, if something like that were to happen. But that's true for every district, and are we still at 13 districts that are poised to be able to open?
The numbers actually, there are districts that are poised to open, that are not, like Springfield and Eugene, their county metrics in Lane County are solid. They're actually better than ours.
Oh, wow.
But they're choosing to stay in CDL for an extended period of time. I have not heard of any other districts who are poised to open that are not going to open.
Okay.
And that a lot of those, like are rural, remote. Josephine County, Three Rivers, we basically have the same plans going forward right now, and full intention they have the same intention moving forward.
Do we have any idea of what the threshold might be for someone bringing a lawsuit? Would it be somebody dying? Would it be someone just getting sick? Would it be
You can bring a lawsuit for anything. It's not a lawsuit so much as that you're concerned with. I think the real question is, what is the real risk of someone becoming sick and infected and dying from the situation if we follow all of the guidance we've been asked to follow? That number is infinitesimally small. If we do what we've said we're going to do, then the risk to individuals is extremely small. It's not low. But to win a lawsuit, you would also have to demonstrate that we were negligent in our plan. And if we are not negligent in our plan, then the ability of them to win the lawsuit is zero, because we're doing what we've said we're going to do to be safe, and we're following the proper guidance from the state and from everyone else. So really the first concern for me would be, do we really have a significant risk that people would become sick and die from the exposure, coming to the classroom or returning to school? And the answer is no, not if we really follow the policies that we put into place. And the second is, if we do that, what is our real risk of a lawsuit where we would be sued and end up owing more than we could ever pay, and that is zero if we do what we said we're going to do. So from that vantage point, I would say I feel very comfortable going back, because I do believe that our teachers and the students, K through 3, will do what we were asking them to do. And so really the risk of transmission or of a lawsuit is very, very low. So,
And the slow start. It's extremely slow start.
yeah, we're not setting a record here as we move forward. So, and that's okay. We don't want to be. I mean, I think we're just getting our feet wet.
And one of the keys is being negligent. If we are not being negligent, what it comes down to is what's the possible life, depending on a person who died or something like that, who was injured, which, talk about numbers that can be, $8 or $9 million.
Well, the state, I believe, has a cap on what we can do if someone dies. I would have to go back and look, but in the medical profession, every once in a while, we have to know what the number is. So you could ask the attorneys to look at what that opinion is.
I thought there was, and I could be wrong, because I tried to go down the path to help myself just feel better without having to do all of this, but I don't know if that cap necessarily applies to what we're talking about here as it would in the medical profession. I could be wrong, but I thought I was, some of my research was showing that. That's kind of besides the point a little bit. I just wanted all of us to make sure we were all on the same page as far as what we were taking on risk-wise for the benefit of our kids, and making sure that we were making that responsible decision and not just moving through at light speed, even though we have to, because the calendar is getting shorter and shorter before kids are back inside these buildings. So.
All right, any further comments?
I just think we need to rely on our administration and staff to carry out their marching orders. They've got them, they made them up themselves, and they conform, to my knowledge, and I don't think we need to spend more time discussing that.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. We'll move on. For action items, section 5.1, approval of scope and contract of LED and HVAC projects. So, Sherry, I believe that would be you.
Yes. So we presented the contract to you that has the scope of the project for the LED light installation and the HVAC retrofit project. I did get some questions from member DeLagrange, and I asked Jerry and Jason if they would hop on the call tonight and respond to those questions. So if you're okay with that, I can have them do that right now. Does that work okay for you, Chairman Nelson?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Jason, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, I'll go ahead. We already did our introductions last time, so no need to review all that. But again, Jason Carver, lead project developer in Oregon, worked with a lot of schools and excited to work with this school district. So there were some specific questions presented by board member DeLagrange, and I just answer those. I'll try not to just read these verbatim, but I had a chance to sort of get my thoughts down. The first question is, are there product specifications or minimum efficiencies? So the answer on that is we have a lot of products identified that we'd like to present, but we haven't technically started the design process. So I have a few lighting specification samples that I provided. These are essentially LED products that are cost-effective, long life, proven. They do have a nice feature where you can actually set the color temperature, so warm, cool, bright, that sort of thing. So you might have a few rooms where you'd want to set them differently. I like that there's a switch right on the side. And then we have some products that we've discussed with James and with ER Electric, who serves the district for lighting, and we've agreed on some preliminary specs. So these are good products. We've used them a lot before, and I can present those out, and I will present them out formally once we are under contract. As far as the heating, cooling, the code efficiencies of 13 SEER and 7.7 heating HSPF are the minimum. Those are very good as is. So contractually, legally, to get sign off, we have to do that. Our goal is to do something better than that. So through design, we'll do what we can to get more efficient equipment and systems in. We also have the budget to put in a hybrid heat pump, 80% efficiency, so that rather than using 80% efficient gas, which is the minimum, it would use a hybrid heat pump with a coefficient of performance of around 2.5, that's 7.7 HSPF, so essentially 2.5 times more efficient than gas, but wouldn't save you a lot of costs because electricity is more expensive. So glad to talk about that more, but that's where we're at right now. Does that answer that question sufficiently?
Does that answer include the option of a VRF system, or is that still coming?
No, so the VRF, that was the second question, and I can get into that, and maybe we can discuss the whole enchilada here. So this would be a really tough thing to answer, except that I just did it for another district, South Plains School District. We're working with them to install a VRF system at Bohemia Elementary School, which is really similar and is a good analog to the facilities, especially the elementary schools. So using rough numbers, essentially, the project, if using standard systems, which for a lot of infrastructure reasons was not feasible, we used VRF because it was a reduced load on the strained electrical system. It allowed us to avoid using supplemental heat because we could oversize it in a way that would work fine in cold weather. So there was a lot of reasons why they chose this. But essentially a $1.5 million project became $2 million with VRF over a standard system. Resulted in about $5,400 in energy savings, so not a lot. The incentive is expected to be about $40,000. So financially, that's about a 50, 60-year payback on the incremental cost difference. So if you're looking at a school with a utility spend on heating and cooling of about $30,000, which is about where you are in the elementary schools, VRF would be maybe 20% more efficient. So that would be, you know, instead of $24,000 for VRF, we're looking at like a $30,000 here. So it's definitely still an option, but the cost is really hard to justify, and it was not our first recommended solution because of that. We thought it would jeopardize the project.
One of the things I did was I checked over with Rogue River. This is James Lowe, by the way. Rogue River at the elementary schools, they did the VRF over there, and they've had some trouble with it, trying to isolate the lines and trying to, it's in the old elementary school. And if you kind of know that courtyard type of scenario, they really had a hard time protecting the lines running on the VRF. So it was one of the items that I was a little concerned with, going with the VRF for vandalism and that kind of stuff versus having units up on the roof. But we did check in with Rogue River, and they did do that about 2 years ago. I checked into it a year ago. I haven't checked in recently, but I could check in and see what their final outcome was. We did have a meeting with one of their engineers of record. That was the mechanical engineer, and they did have some concerns or some trouble running the lines for that product in that old masonry units there at Rogue River Elementary School. So it was something that we looked at, but we didn't have a good warm and fuzzy feeling coming from Rogue River. But that was a year ago, and the system's been in workings for about 2 years now.
Yes, and we did install VRF systems at Phoenix Elementary and Talent Elementary School. It was challenging. It took longer than we thought. There are some maintenance issues that are long-term, detecting leaks and things like that. The whole system goes down at once instead of one room. You only have a few service providers that are capable of servicing the system, so your options are limited. Your costs go up. But like I said, we've done it. We can make it work. I just don't recommend it in this case for the fairly small financial benefits, especially if we're able to go with a heat pump hybrid system and a VRF. You know, if you're only gaining 10 or 20% efficiency, makes it harder to justify.
VRF, what's a VRF?
VRF is variable refrigerant flow. Yes. Well, thank you for all that. Sounds like there sure are a lot of negatives to that system from what I'm hearing. I've heard good things about them from the city of Medford. They've had good luck with those systems. And I know Southern Oregon University has had good luck with those systems. So I know it's not all doom and gloom, and I know that they are supremely efficient to the option that we're looking at here today. And I also do have concerns about creating 128 new roof penetrations in the schools, which is how this would be working when we have separate units for every room. There is going to be a lot more opportunities for roof issues. 128 units, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for maintenance issues, running around to a bunch of different mechanical units as opposed to one. So I just wanted to make sure that we had done our due diligence on that. And what was I going to say?
Yeah, I could chime in real quick while you're thinking of the comments. So one of the challenges with VRF and why it was a good solution for some of the schools we have done it at, and probably City of Medford's a client of ours too, we're doing their street lighting right now, is if the infrastructure is electrically capable of handling it, and if you have a way to get fresh air into the buildings. So VRF does not provide any fresh air. It recirculates room air and heats it or cools it. So essentially you have to run ductwork either through the entire building, or in a lot of cases you have to put something up on the roof and bring it in. And if you're not using some kind of a heat exchanger, that comes with a lot of problems. So yeah, I mean, I agree VRF is a great solution in some cases. We just didn't feel it was for this case.
Okay, I remembered what I was going to say. So if the VRF isn't a good solution, that's fine. The other piece that I might want to know about is what the incremental cost would be to having more efficient rooftop units than just the minimum required spec that you stated, and how that, what the cost difference and energy savings is associated with that.
Yeah, and that is wide open. I want to explore that as much as possible, getting the most energy efficiency we can within the budget. So that 13 SEER, seasonal energy efficiency rating, typically we can find equipment that's a size 15 SEER. The bleeding edge of that technology is 18, 19 SEER, and that's where the cost premiums go up, but essentially you're only gaining a few percent reduction for every SEER. So I think we're going to find the sweet spot as we fully engineer and design this, have as much involvement from the board as we think is necessary to make everyone happy with the products that we're installing, that we are getting the most efficient system we can, not just doing the bare minimum because it's cheaper.
Very good.
So I have a question, I guess maybe for Sherry. This contract, so as I read through it, I mean, there's parts of it which were just the design contract. So if you haven't done the design yet, how do we know what the final contract's going to look like? I guess I'm asking, are there stages to this contract? They're going to do the design, and then do we get to go yes or no at that point? How does that work?
Yep, that's exactly right, Gary. This will be authorizing them to go ahead with the design work, and then we'll have a subsequent contract that lays out the final scope and the cost, so that you'll have the financing package along with that. So you're right, it will come to you in stages.
So the part we're going to approve today, what is that in terms of cost?
So I'll clarify on the contract. So this actually is a design, construction, and measurement verification contract with a guaranteed total not to exceed open book cost structure. So essentially, this contract does approve the entire amount for design, construction, measurement, verification. The audit, essentially what we are at right now, is the point where you can stop and not go forward the second part, which is design, construction, measurement, verification. This is a design build type contract. So essentially we've done enough diligence to know what it's going to cost. And we are the umbrella over the design, over procurement, subcontractors, so that you don't have finger pointing. So essentially this is a design build contract, and we take on the risk with a guaranteed maximum price. So if we discover it costs more, well, that's on us, that's on Amoresco, because we've guaranteed the price. So this is a way, it was developed by the state to bring energy infrastructure projects to market faster rather than design, bid, build. So it is an approved contract, and this part of the contract is all inclusive of design, construction, and follow-up measurement verification, the 15.4 million. Then what Sherry was saying, I think, was the notices to proceed. So we can't proceed with anything until there's financing in place. So what we'd be looking for quickly is notice to proceed on lighting, where there was funds already in place through an SB 1149 accrual. So that would be a limited notice to proceed. And then the second notice to proceed would come when the financing was available for the rest of the project.
Okay, so I'm unclear what we're exactly approving today.
So on page 58 of the contract, Sherry, there's a summary slide with what I believe is the contract with the $15.4 million bid. Is that the correct summary page? Is that what we're looking at because we talked about a number of different options the last time we met, but that seems to include everything that we talked about last time. Is that correct?
That's correct. That summary page includes all of the projects that we were sharing with you guys at the last meeting, because we got the indication from the board that you wanted us to move ahead and with the full project scope, not just like parsing it out and doing like the older schools, etc. And so, as Jason explained, that includes the total amount. And then at the next meeting, we will bring the financing documents to you so that you can see what kind of rate we got and what the term will be and what the payments per month will be. But we would, part of what we would be moving ahead with right now is the lighting project, because we have the financing to do that because of the incentives that were coming and because of the money that we still have coming to us through Senate Bill 1149 and what we already have in the bank through Senate Bill 1149. So we have enough funding to cover the lighting portion of the project. And we do need to be able to move forward with that sooner rather than later, because that has to be finished by December or we lose the incentives through the Energy Trust.
So Sherry, I fully want this project, but as I've been thinking about it and reviewing, I just want to double check with you. We're basically committing to $1 million a year in capital improvement costs. Do you think we can swing that?
I do at this point, Debbie. We have the existing transfer out of the general fund to capital projects of $600,000. And so doing this project will take away some of what we have typically used that money for. So we'll have a portion of that to use. And we also have a significant savings coming in the next couple of years through PERS, which I know is a big shocker to everybody, but the PERS rates are going down between 4 and 6% for the next biennium. And so that will give us a cushion in the bank to service the debt for a while. And then which will give us time to work with our budget and adjust our budget to absorb the debt service in the years going forward. And then once the elementary classrooms are paid off, we'll have the funds for that. So now we're looking way down the road, or a little ways down the road. So I do believe we have a path to get there for sure. I will caveat that with saying, you never know what's going to happen, at the state level, but at this point, I am feeling pretty confident that we can service the debt for this. And I also know that this has been a priority of the board for a long time to have this work done. And I feel like we need to take a little bit of a chance right now and jump out and at least get the work done, knowing that we're going to, on our end, on administration's end, have to manage the budget and look at other areas that we can reduce expenditures as we move forward.
And when are the classrooms going to be paid off?
That is a really good question, Debbie, and off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay.
But I can look that up and I can have that for you at the next meeting.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that my hopes weren't out in front of the reality of the financial picture. So thank you.
Yep.
Right. So last meeting we went over this stuff, and there was like the 4 options. There was lighting only, and then there was lighting in some HVAC, lighting in all HVAC, and then all of that, and then roofs. So this is option 1 that is in here? Okay.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure everyone knew that.
And that includes roofs, or we thought there'd be enough contingency to help cover the bulk of the roof costs, is where we landed last meeting.
Well, one of the questions I have is about the roofs, because it seems like it's a roof overlay, or it's not like an actual roof. So maybe we're going to get to that still, but yeah.
Yeah, I can clarify on what roofs are included. So the roofs at, oh boy, you're going to make me remember which schools. 3 of the schools had roofs that are 1998, 1999, and year 2000 installed. So these are roofs that are under a warranty through that's not the right name, Lawless Roofing. And those are ended or just ended a few years ago. So what Lawless has recommended, a longtime roofing contractor for the district, is to put on a coating material that essentially extends the life of the existing roof. If left as is, you would definitely have some problems over the next 10 years. But to cover it up, you essentially, encase it, and then you get a 10-year warranty on this. The product they'd recommend is called Tri-Built 700. It's an acrylic coating, so sometimes they call it a cool roof coating because it reflects sunlight. It's approved by Cool Roof Ratings Council and Energy Star. It's a water-based product, so it's massively cheaper than actually replacing a roof and accomplishes almost all of the same things. And this is at 3 of the schools. There were 2 other schools mentioned that need roof repairs that are outside of the schools that we're looking, outside of the 5 schools, we're looking at mechanical upgrades. And those we have said with the $1 million contingency, we hope everything goes well. We have some large portion of that $1 million left, and we would be able to accomplish that as the item on the wish list that we would do first when we have funds remaining at the end of the project. Because any funds that aren't spent are reconciled back to the district. That's what the open book means, or used for additional work, such as those wish list roof items.
It's like an asphalt overlay. Like if we had a parking lot, like I did that one time up at North Middle School in the center parking lot. I did some repairs on that, got the repairs done, and then we had, we had somebody come in and do an overlay. And so it's like putting down another overlay on top of your parking lot in order to extend the life of that existing parking lot. And in this case, it's a roof. And I want to say it's South, Allendale, and Highland.
So does this contract match exactly option 1 from the last meeting?
Yes, nothing has been changed.
All right, well, hearing no other questions, we will entertain a motion to approve our Amoresco contract and the PDF draft that you have received. Come on, Debbie, you can do it.
This is Debbie Brownell, and I would move that we approve the Amoresco contract and CDP draft.
This is Cliff Coolman, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. The motion has been presented and seconded. Are there any further comments? Yes, Brian.
Would staff want to address those remaining questions I had before we take a vote by chance? Because I believe there were 2 or 3 more. Sherry?
Jason?
Yeah, I can go over those.
Thank you.
I was wondering if I'd already answered them. That's why I moved forward. But I can do it real quickly here, or as long as you'd like me to take. So exterior lighting fixtures, there was a couple questions about that. Are they dark sky compliant? I sure hope that we can accomplish that. We definitely have products that are dark sky compliant. We work closely with the International Dark Sky Association because we do a lot of street lights, so we work well with them. Sometimes though, the dark sky stuff doesn't accomplish what you want. If you're trying to light a pathway and it's just lighting the wall, we might need to deviate from that. But for the most part, yeah, I would agree that that's a good goal to have on the project, and it's feasible, and that we'll review that during the lighting design. There was a question about will we have controls on the outdoor lighting. There's some great onboard options. So where lighting is at 50% when it's outdoors and it's night and there's nobody there, 50% brightness. But when someone comes in within the vicinity, it goes to full brightness. I would highly recommend that. That is certainly accomplishable with the budget we have. And I think we'll submit that as an option for the lighting. So that's certainly possible. Good idea. And for indoor lighting, yes, we will use the International IES, so Illumination Engineering Society, recommendations for indoor classes. We just have a clause in there that says if something is severely overlit, we would like to address that. Maybe we bring it down with the district's collaboration, of course. We won't do anything unilaterally. So yes, meeting IES is a important part of the project, and it's what we designed to. Does that answer those questions so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Something about there's a question about existing equipment abandoned in place. So as we're completely switching the technology that's heating and cooling these buildings, there will be some components that it makes a lot of sense to leave in place. So these are pipes that are in walls above the ceiling. They don't pose any danger, and to remove them would require removing walls, repatching, painting. There's some HVAC service under gym floors. We don't want to tear up the gym floors. So the goal is, or the scope, what we're required to do under this scope, what I recommend is the boiler rooms at 4 of the schools, so not North, but Riverside, Allendale, and Highland. Those boiler rooms would be completely gutted. There would be nothing left in there other than if there's some domestic water piping, electrical service that's unrelated to the boilers. Then those rooms could be used for storage or whatever. I mean, they wouldn't have any ventilation, so it wouldn't be a teaching space or anything like that. At North, the boiler will remain in place to serve Building A only. The other buildings will be separated from that. So that was what that recommendation in the contract was saying.
Very good. Thanks.
And that's all the questions, I believe.
I believe so.
So I guess I have to follow up. It's a comment more than anything else. I did ask some questions of Sherry earlier related to air quality for our buildings and the removal of boilers. And this conversation related to ERFs, which doesn't or wouldn't cause there to be air quality changes to the rooms. I'm always hoping to get solve 2 problems with 1 fix, and we're currently have pandemic issues, but we also have sickness issues every January, February, where we lose 20-30% of our students for significant periods of time. So during the design phase, I'm wanting to make sure you lean toward the air quality as opposed to efficiency for the solution.
Agreed. And we definitely have that budgeted. We have even ionization technology that increases the productivity of the heating system filters. So currently you have just a small amount of ventilation coming in through the fan coils in the perimeter. It would not meet current code. So the new systems will have full quantities of outside air volume, so fresh air entering the room, and advanced filtration. And that is in the budget, and it's something we're highly interested in getting in your schools too because of what's going on. And it's a good idea anyway because it would help with flu season, smoke. It's a really, it's a well-documented improvement in the learning environment. I sent a Lawrence Berkeley laboratory study earlier. I'm not sure if that made it to the board, but it showed a significant correlation between fresh air and test scores. So yes, that is a highly important feature of this project that we have the budget to do.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So we have a motion and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Member Durbin?
Yes.
Member James?
Yes.
Member Coleman?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Member Bolton?
Yes.
Member Brownell?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
All right, with that, the motion carries. I think that does deserve an applause. We've been working a long time.
We're so excited.
Thank you,
very
Jason.
much, gentlemen, for your help, and we look forward to working with you.
Likewise,
You too.
we'll sign off for now. Thank you for your time and attention. Appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Good night.
That's a big deal, guys. That's huge.
It is a big deal.
It's huge.
Yes, there is many staff and children who will thank you for your vote. So we can get some air conditioning in them. My daughter doing one of them. Okay, great.
Wait, did he recuse himself?
Yes, I did. I only voted with a yay instead of a yes.
Questionable.
All right, so item 5.2, approval of second and final reading of revised policies and ARs. So EEA student transportation services, the GPSD7 drug and alcohol testing and record query for transportation personnel, the GPSD7 AR drug and alcohol testing and record query for transport personnel, use of restraint or seclusion, medications, and medication. I believe we can take this all in one motion.
This is Member Durbin. I move that we approve the second final reading of all of 5.2. Member Wilkins, second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Or any discussion since we haven't had? Okay, very good. Johnny, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Member Durbin? Yes. Member Gillibrand?
Yes.
Member Coleman?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Member Bolton?
Yes.
Member Brownell?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 6, future meeting dates and suggested agenda items. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 8th at 5 p.m. And anyone have any topics that they would like to consider for an agenda? Okay. Then we are going to adjourn our meeting in less than 1 hour. I'd like to congratulate everyone on such an accomplishment and the fact that we accomplished such great work tonight in less than an hour. We can do this again next time. All right, so our meeting will be adjourned.